So now we're going to talk about editing the actual trigger inputs. We've assumed that you've established your kit type, you call up the drum machine that you want, and we've also established that you've set your pad type. You define what's in each pad. In other words, what you decided to put as the pad type for each of the inputs. So now we're going to look at the MIDI information that is stored underneath each one of these inputs. Now, when you call up a kit, generally, all the note numbers that are the bass drum, the snare drum, the tom-toms that are written on top of the Diti are already pre-assigned, but you may want to change that. So first, let's start by going into the edit screen. And you'll notice that the very first edit screen is MIDI Channel. If you were somewhere else and you wanted to start by simply holding down that input, it'll take you right to the very first screen. And now also notice that on the top right, you see 1B, and you can't change that. That's because it's established here, where you are the global edit for pad A or pad B, 2A, 2B. However, if you have it set to automatic, and you've already established your pad types, when you go here and you strike one of the triggers, it will automatically jump to that trigger. And that is really good and fast when you want to do editing in the MIDI department. Okay, so channel 1, pad number 1 channel, we have 16 different channels that you can pick. And when you pick a channel, you notice that you see an asterisk on the right. That's because that shows that the screen is now showing an edited version. As soon as you hit enter, it loads it in and the asterisk goes away. If I hit the right arrow to the right, I see the MIDI note. Now notice that there are two parameters that are programmable: the slot and the MIDI note. The MIDI note are the numbers where the actual sounds are located. There are 127 note numbers in the MIDI spec, and you can change the note numbers by just simply using the up or the down arrows. But what do the slots mean? Well, what the Diti does is something interesting, and that is it allows more than one note per pad, depending on some other modes, which we'll talk about. So you'll notice that, so slot 1 has that sound. If I go to slot 2, it can have another, and there are, check out, lots of different slots that you can use. Up to 32 different slots can be used per pad. Now, with the MIDI notes, you should notice that after 127, the 0 to 127, there are special cat modes. And one is called off. And what off does is gives you silence. If you're using one of the modes that allow for alternate patterns, off is perfect because it just gives you silence while you're moving through the pattern. And then also, we have sequence of starts and stop and continue. This is if you want to control an external sequencer. We have alternate reset 1 and alternate reset 2. These are special modes when using the alternate mode function, which we'll talk about later. And there's also alternate freeze. Then we have a program advance. This means that whatever program number that you have assigned to the kit, if you put this on a pad, it will jump to the next note number. You can go forwards or backwards, or you can go kit advance and kit backwards. These are really powerful features so that you can basically jump from kit to kit or from sound to sound, but it's having a special pad dedicated to this function. We also have choke aftertouch and choke note we'll talk about when we get into those special functions. And that's the MIDI note and the slots.